My name is Harrison Umaña. I am from Costa Rica, and I want to share my testimony. As you know, when you talk about your testimony, you need to start from the first part of your life, even before. So I want to tell you about what happened in my family. My dad and my mom, they met each other in the church. They were Christian, and so they started to date. But in that time of dating, they didn't have a really good relationship. They even, firstly, my dad, he was so abusive even when they were dating, and even he was really jealous, and so he even could beat someone in the street if he just says or look at my mom. So that it was that their relationship started really bad. When my dad was studying theology in the university, Central America University in Alajuela, Costa Rica. But when they met and they got married, he decided to stop his studies in theology because he said, well, I need to be more in home, and I need to get a job when I need to take care of my family. So he left everything. So he started to work in different places, and he found work in the police that makes investigation in Costa Rica. Is like the FBI. And this police, he started to see the world in a different way. He was religious, but he was not a true Christian as we will need to be. But when he started in this job, he knew many bad things, so he started to drink alcohol, to smoke. He started to have another women, and that was when I was 4 years old, when he started to do all these things. I have two other brothers, but I have another one brother that is a half brother, and another two sisters that come from my dad also, very young. But in that moment we were just three brothers, and I just remember even when my first thought that I have was a really hard situation in my home, because my dad was, as I said, he was really abusive in his relationship with my mom when they were just dating, and in the marriage he still was very abusive. There was a moment when my mom didn't want to continue leaving him to beat her, so she started to defend herself. So there were fights when they were beating each other. I remember when I was 7 years old or 8, those years. When I was in the school, when they really had really bad fights, and I even needed to take knives or to take or to say to my dad, not don't do that, or even just to be between them, to don't allow each other to hurt really bad. So I said, well, I'm a Christian, so the people are saying some things in the church, my parents, oh, amen, amen, but I saw different things, so I was confused even in my Christianity. So when I went to the school, I remember when I was 11 years old, or 12 years old, a classmate, he and another group of my friends or classmates say to us, oh, do you know about masturbation, or even do you know about pornography? And I didn't know about those things, so I started to practice them because I was curious. I was just curious, so I started to do those things in that age, at 12 years old, and so it became really a hard addiction. Not pornography, because I didn't have the possibility to look at it at that moment often, but the masturbation, it was really so it was an addiction, really hard addiction that I could not stop. And I thought that it was good. I thought it was something normal for the guys. So I kept doing it, and even I said to those young men that they didn't do that, hey, why you are not doing that? This is for men. If you are not doing that, you are gay. And I did it, and I did it to those. And so in that moment, I was thinking that it was so normal, and I was inviting other young men to do that. So in the church, no one talked about it. When they were talking about sexuality, the last thing that they told, it was about masturbation or pornography. So it was really a real confusion for me, even into the church. When I grew up, my parents divorced when I was 13 years old, and I was so happy, really. It is strange to listen to this, but really I was so happy because I knew that the fights were going to stop. But even it was really hard for me, but I knew that it was a better way for us to have some relaxation maybe in my home. And so when I was growing up, I was being part of the different activities on my in my church, adventure, pathfinder. Later I was a master guide, but I was immersed in those activities. But even being or participating in those activities, it was difficult and confused to me, even that situation with masturbation. And I kept doing it and thinking that it was right. So when I was 19 years old, when I finished my high school and I got a job, I went. I started to feel tired, or to feel that I didn't want to continue in the church. I was saying all these things, all these activities. I don't think I am not feeling that they are making some difference in my life. My life has been still the same, and I would like to see who is the world. So I said, I will leave that church. I will see who is it there. I want to see the world. So when I left the church, it was really hard for my mom to see that his her her son was leaving the church and doing all this stuff, and even returning to home drunk, even vomiting or so. When it was there outside, the electronic music was, or the dance music was beating in my mind, even when I was a Christian. So when I left the church, I said, well, maybe this can be my opportunity. And so I met people that they were DJs, and I left my first group of friends, those that I had in the high school, and I met these people. And so I started to learn some tips how to become a DJ, and I wanted to do that. And even I went to my house and I started to do these remixes in my PC. And I remember going to the university, and I started to give many of my remixes to my classmates in the university when I was studying architecture. And I remember going to these clubs, electronic clubs, and even in that moment, for me, the really hard and difficult, or the drug that really kept me in the world, was the music, the electronic music. And even I left, I didn't drink again, and I just went to those clubs, and I knew that the real drug was that. And so I started to learn more and more about how to become a DJ. But I remember in that moment that I had my first cell phone with internet, and I was 20 years old. And when I had this cell phone, do you remember that I saw some pornography, maybe from magazines or cards or something like that? But until I had that cell phone with internet, I had open access to pornography. So I became an addict. So I was addict to electronic music, to pornography, and I still had or fell into masturbation. But I remember going to visit my friends in the church, and I remember a pastor giving a sermon. And so I remember that sermon touched my heart, and he said, if I continue in this way that I am following, there will be not a time when I can turn back. So I think this is my time to return to the church. I know what I'm doing, but I will return to the church. So I did it, and I started to be immersed in the activities and have another friends in the church. But these friends that I had in the church, it is hard to say, but they were not helping me in my spiritual relationship with God, because I had 20. I was 21, 22 years old in that moment, but I felt that they were not helping me in that. And so I met some people and other people of my church that they were, even with their mistakes, they were willing to be young people, a different young people, for God, even with their mistakes. And so I started to see these things in them, and I said, no, really, this is the way that maybe God wants me to follow. And so in that moment, I knew that the masturbation, it was really bad for me. And could not stop. I could not stop. So in those moments, in those years, when it was 24, 25 years old, I met this girl. She was working in her church, and I was working in my church, and I was a deacon, and then in that moment I was an elder, and it was really hard. But we started a relationship. But this relationship became in a moment that where we were not committed spiritually to God. We did not pray. We did not make many things that could help us in our relationship. We did not do those things, so the relationship became sexual, and it was really hard for me because I felt really lost. I said, I knew the truth, I know the truth, I know what to do, I know the main things or themes in the Bible, but they said I know all these things, but I did this, and so I felt really lost. I didn't know what to do. I didn't know how to stop the masturbation. I didn't know how to stop the pornography. Well, and it was really hard. So I finished this relationship. We finished this relationship, and I remember having a prayer with her and asking God for His forgiveness. And I knew that God forgave me in that moment. But after that, when we left each other, it was really hard for me, and that was sexual. I could not stop the masturbation and the pornography, and so I didn't know what to do. And I remember, and I met Coming Out Ministries in Costa Rica, and it was really curious how they could have victory even when they were gay or homosexual. And it was really difficult for me to understand, because even me just practicing masturbation and watching pornography, for me to be a homosexual, it was the worst thing that you could ever be. So I thought, well, if they could have victory, well, it can be nice to know what they are going to say. But in that moment happened something really interesting in my life that helped me. And in that moment I was an elder, as I was saying. In the moment, do you remember that my dad, he left the church. His life was a mess, but he started to return to the church, and so I saw that he was changing his character and many things. So he asked me to baptize him, and I said, wow, who is this? Well, if God is doing this, He can do something for me. So I baptized him because I was an elder, and I asked permission to the president of the conference. He gave it to me, and I baptized him. And so I started to have some victory in my life after that. And I say, God, if you are powerful to change the life of my dad, you can do it with me. So a few moments later, Coming Out Ministries come to Costa Rica, and I was organizing this event with other friends of mine of the church, and I understood how they had this victory. So I took their counsel, and I started a long way and a long path of victory. Thanks to God, I started to date again, to have a relationship again. In that relationship, really I was committed we were committed to do the right things. Even before we started our relationship, we started to fast every week, asking for God's will for us, keeping away for any sexual activity, even kissing. We did not kiss because we knew how difficult it could be to stay away from sexual feelings. So we wanted to be pure for God, and so we were dating 2 years, and I started to be immersed with the team of Coming Out Ministries, and they even printed my testimony, and they invited me to go to South America. I left my passport and my visa, and so I needed to keep there, and so they returned it. I could not return with them, so I needed to return straight to my country. So when I returned to my country, I had some situations when I was in South America, and even before that, after those months of victory, I started to fall again. I asked to my girlfriend I asked her to be my fiancée, and she accepted it, and we were really happy because we are going to get married. Our minds were focused in that, and so when I returned to Costa Rica, we had a conversation, and she asked to me, what about your victory? Who is your victory right now? In that moment, I started to lie. It was so difficult for me because she knew about my past life, about my struggles, and it was really difficult for me to say to her, straight to her, oh, I have been falling. So it was really hard, and I started to say, no, well, you know, the temptations and this kind of stuff, but no, I have been doing good, thanks God. And even I started to avoid that conversation, saying to her, I will not ask to do these kind of things, but it was difficult because I started to be so nervous, and I felt that my mind there was a pressure, a great pressure, and I thought, really, God, the Holy Spirit, he wants me to say this. It is hard, but if I don't say this now, it will be worse. And so I say, wait a minute, I need to say to you this. It is hard for me, but I have not having the victory that you think. I have been failing, and I fell again where I was. So my fiancé broke up with me, and it was really hard for me, but I contact Coming Out Ministries, and I said to them, I shared with them what was going on in that moment, and I was surprised about their response to me, because I thought that they were going to reject me, but they did not do that, and they said to me, Harrison, we really want to support you in this path that you need to start with God. So I kept and I'm keeping in contact with them, and this is the ministry. The coming out ministry is to help other people in their and support the people in this kind of struggles. I started to analyze how I fell again into those things that I was doing before, and I knew that I was going in a wrong direction, in a healthy, my health. I was doing some wrong things, and also I had really short nights, so my mind was really tired, and so even it was difficult for me to have a really good time with the Lord. It was sometimes for the time that I needed to rest and go to the work, I needed to do the things quickly, having that relationship with God. But so these kind of things were making a weak mind on me. And also I didn't have accountability in that moment. I was fighting alone. So I knew that I needed to have that accountability. So I started to be part of a group of accountability. And also I download an accountability app in my cell phone that is really it's really good because I could not go to those sites that I was used to see or to watch, and even this app can send messages or emails to those that have been looking. They can see my activity in my cell phone, what I am doing, what are the sites that I am visiting. So really this have been helping me, and I understood that I really needed to have a good time with the Lord. I needed to restart to depend in the power of God. And so I understood that this is a path where I will not stop being tempted. The path of that Christianity is not to stop to be tempted. So I know that Satan is still there trying to push me to take everything away, but I'm submitting myself to God. Right now, as I am connected with Coming Out Ministries, I know that I'm not prepared to be a speaker, but they have been I have been working behind the scenes with them, helping them and support them in different ways, and they want me to keep there with them to help many people that need a way to have this relationship with God, and that they can have the victory that I am wanting to have. So God has been helping me this time after what happened, and I know that I need to have more time having this victory before I start to help or to be more active with the ministry. But really it's a desire that God has been putting in my heart to help many people that are struggling with this and be a blessing for them. Thank you so much for listening to me, to my testimony. I hope and I pray this will be a blessing for each one of you, and knowing that there is a path that God designed for us to walk with Him. And so God wants you to have that victory too. May God bless you.